Believe it or not, this is my graduation photo. A younger, less hairy version of myself, full of wonderment and his whole life ahead of him. That was 4 years ago. And it's a pretty significant time in my life because it's the time when I tasted risotto for the first time. A high school student was doing a competition. He gave me this spoonful of risotto. I ate it and I said to myself, no matter what happens in your life, Spencer, you gotta learn how to make it. I did, and I'm sharing it with you. So without further ado, this is the mighty Mushroom Risotto. Roll it! All right, I've always wanted to watch myself cook. That's super weird. We'll say bye to Spencer from 4 years ago. So, risotto is a northern Italian rice dish cooked in broth till it's creamy. Back to the Future, broth. It's the most important part of a risotto and it's gonna give you a ton of flavor. So this is mushroom risotto and I like to start with some dried mushrooms. This stuff packs a ton of flavor. When they're dried, they get super intense. There's porcinis in there, portobellos, and oyster mushrooms, and they make a great broth. So don't be shy with the dry mushrooms. You can find them at any grocery store. And then for the liquid, I use a balance of water and veg stock. And when you cook it, it just lightly steeps, the mushrooms get really nice and soft, and it gives you the most unbelievable flavor, and then a little bit of veg stock. You can smell it already. As soon as the water hits the mushrooms, it just fills your nose with the most beautiful forest mushroom flavor. And here's a great tip. You want to get it on the stove, bring it up to temp slowly, get the mushrooms nice and soft, and that is liquid gold to cook risotto. All right, sweet. So the second part of the risotto is lots of onions and garlic. And here's a great tip. I use onions and garlic a lot in this recipe, so I cut it up all at the beginning. All right, a little bit of knife work, we get to make risotto. Let's do it! So the onions and garlic are all chopped up, and that's good because I use them at the beginning and then I use them at the beginning of the end. We'll get there. And the broth has cooked and cooled, but look at the color of that. The mushrooms have opened up. It's lent a lot of flavor to the veg stock and the water, and it smells absolutely ridiculous, like a mushroom grenade. But you want to save the broth and the mushrooms. Here's another good tip. When you're gonna cook the risotto, you want warm stock. If you use cold stock, then it takes the risotto forever to cook. So keep the stock warm. And these mushrooms, this is free flavor. These are super delicious, but you can't leave them this size or you'll choke on them. Anyway, so I like to chop them up. Easy peasy, just get them on the board, run your knife through it so they're nice and bite-sized, and it's a perfect texture. Those smell crazy. Okay, things are looking really good. Mushroom risotto. If you've never made risotto before, it's really easy. Okay, so onions and garlic are chopped up, check. Dried mushrooms and the broth, oh my God, amazing, check. And I use some fresh mushrooms too. So mushrooms in the risotto, and then stage 2, I add fresh mushrooms, and you can use whatever you got lying around. You can use white button mushrooms, you can use portobello, you can use oyster. I'm using creminis. These are great little mushrooms. They pack a lot of flavor. They're like sponges, and the best part is you can find them anywhere. So just get some mushrooms chopped up. Making some risotto, and it's gonna be good. All right, amazing. So there's only one type of rice that you can use to make risotto, and it's arborio rice. I've tried making it with sushi rice once, didn't work. So you need the right rice grain. This is arborio, it's a Mediterranean rice grain, and when you cook it slowly in broth, it gets really nice and creamy. So I like to set up the board. I got the fresh mushrooms, and then the dried mushrooms, the onions and the garlic. What else do I need? I need a little bit of butter. I got the broth. Let's do this. All right, so when all the chopping's done, this is the fun part. You want a nice hot pan, and rice likes to drink up flavor, especially arborio rice, it likes to drink up oil, so a nice shot of good olive oil. That was perfect. Okay, so hot pan, then hot oil, and then the first thing that's gonna go in is those soaked up mushrooms, and that's how you build flavor, baby. Is it hot enough? If you want to tell if it's hot, you just stick your whole hand in there. Never do that. Just wait. When the oil starts to glisten and separate a little bit, you know it's hot. I think it's hot. All right, you want to hear a nice sizzle because you want to get these mushrooms really nice and crispy. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, so when I put the mushrooms in first, just stop. You want to get the mushrooms to season the oil. You want a bit of crust on there. So as soon as the mushrooms go in, just give it a second to warm up and get the bottom of the mushrooms nice and crispy. It smells so good already with the broth and the mushrooms. Memories, memories. It smells so potent in here with the broth and the mushrooms. And speaking of mushrooms, when they go in and they get a chance to cook and you have a little bit of patience, just mix the mushrooms around. You get a big sizzle and you can heat them up and get the oil flavored. Then I go in with half the onions and half the garlic. That's a good tip. Get the mushrooms in first, get some flavor happening in the oil, and then you can put in the onions and the garlic. And to heighten the flavor of it, mushrooms love a little kiss of salt. So put that in there, and then you start building flavor. Super delicious. And the rice loves a lot of oil, and this is a really good tip. When you're cooking arborio rice, you want to toast the rice. So just put in a little shot of olive oil, and then put your arborio rice in. And the rice likes to toast, and when it opens up, it already starts drinking up the flavor. It's like a mushroom because it's a sponge and it just soaks up all of that beautiful flavor. Oh yeah, this is great. That's the rice toasting. That's a really good sound. You just want to keep it working. Beautiful. I'm in heaven, unless you're allergic to mushrooms, and probably phone a cab. There you are. Step 1, mushrooms nice and seasoned and crispy. Step 2, onions and garlic. Step 3, toasted arborio rice, and you can see that the rice is starting to change color. Those are those crispy bits of mushroom. This is a perfect time to give it a drink. Like anything good, a little splash of wine just kind of livens the day up. And white wine, mushrooms, and risotto are best friends, and you want to hear a wild sizzle. That's perfect. Get the wine in there. The rice should be nice and toasted on the bottom. And here's a great tip. Put the wine in there, let the wine cook out, and then it's time to add that big, beautiful, bold mushroom stock. This is gonna be delicious. All right, come here, come here. That's what the bottom of the pan should look like. Nice and clean. The wine's gone, the rice has changed color, the mushrooms are giving so much flavor, and this is the perfect time to add the stock. Now, quick tip here. Risotto is like any other rice that you've ever cooked. Usually you'd put it in a pot or a rice cooker, fill it up with the appropriate amount of water, press go, and wait to eat it. Risotto is the complete opposite. So you need to put a couple of cups of stock in at a time and keep it moving. The best part about a risotto is that starchy rice. And the more you move it, you let that liquid cook down, you add more liquid, the creamier the rice is gonna be. And if I was risotto, that's how I want to be cooked. Lots of mushrooms, onion, garlic, wine, and that decadent mushroom stock. So this is the patient part. Don't go do a load of laundry. Don't decide to mow the lawn. You want to stay here with the rice, adding a cup of stock at a time. No matter what's going on in my life, standing over a pot of bubbling risotto seems to be a cure-all. Unless the bank's after you. Then no matter what you do, you're stressed. Okay. Okay, so the risotto is about 85% cooked, and look at the color and look at the creaminess. It's soaked up all of that beautiful mushroom stock. So you have two options right now. One, you can finish it with butter and cheese and lemon and parmesan, or if you're gonna have company over, this is where I stop the cooking process, and then you can hold it overnight. The next night, I'll show you how to whip it up. All right, I'm taking it off the heat. Hey, what? Hello? Oh, thank you. Okay, this is perfect. So just spread the rice out a little bit. And then I like to let it cool. You can keep this overnight, and then when the guests come, you just finish it with butter, cheese, parsley, lemon. It's delicious. This takes about 10 minutes to cool, which reminds me, there's something I got to take care of. 1 second. Dude, what are you doing? The risotto's cooling. You're up next. I'm watching Top Gun. You're making risotto. You can't watch a movie. Well, hear ya. Got headphones, bro. You are one of the most handsomest. You look so good in aviation. Okay, give me 20 minutes. We'll watch it together. Okay. And don't forget the Parmesan cheese and the risotto. I do love pork rinds. And I am not waiting. I love this movie. All right, let's go. All right, so the rice is about, after it cools, because it continues to cook, after it's cool, it's about 85–90% cooked. And that's a great tip. If you're gonna do this for a dinner party, make that first step ahead of time, cool it, guests arrive, you don't have to do the whole process, you just have to finish it. So this is how you finish it. Because it's all about mushrooms, I'm gonna start with some more hot oil and then some fresh cremini mushrooms. You wanna hear a good sizzle, because mushrooms have a lot of water in it. So if you start it with a good sizzle, get a good crust on the mushrooms, they retain the water, they stay nice and juicy, and they're really flavorful. So again, like before, get the mushrooms in with a little bit of oil and just stop for a minute. Let them soak up some of that oil, let them get really nice and crispy. Snap, crackle, pop, crispy mushrooms. This is perfect. When you pull the mushroom out, see that color there? That is a beautifully cooked mushroom. It's retained its moisture, but it's really nice and crispy. You want a good sizzle. And then in with the other half of the onions and garlic. And it just adds, because the mushrooms are so earthy, if you add some fresh onions and garlic in with the mushroom, they're best friends. They're partying. We should have a party. That's really good. And you want to season the mushrooms and the onions, kind of soften them up a little bit. And then I reserve some of the mushroom broth, and that's gonna help finish the risotto, bring it from 85–90 to 100% cooked. So a little bit more broth in with the crispy mushrooms and the onions and the garlic, and then you can go right in with the rice. All right, so once you get the risotto back in there, just move it around. And that extra broth is really nice because it'll finish cooking it. You can see the rice picks it up right away and it starts to warm it. All right, to finish it, that rice needs a little shot of salt, a couple twists of pepper, especially fresh pepper. Mushrooms and fresh pepper and onions and garlic, they're best friends. And this is classically how you finish a risotto in Italy. You want some fat in there. So a couple big hunks of butter. I know that seems crazy, but it really gives it a rich creaminess and it's just delicious. And then to add to the creaminess, you want some Parmesan cheese, nothing less than the best. A nice hunk of fresh parm. I use a microplane and just let her rain. So the Parmesan and butter helps make the risotto really nice and creamy, but there's so much flavor happening there. A lot of intense flavor from the cooked mushrooms to the dehydrated mushroom stock. You want something to kind of just take that richness out, and the man for the job is lemon. A nice squeeze of fresh lemon. Mushroom and lemon are really good friends. And then it drives through some of that fattiness and makes the risotto really nice and bright. And then just mix it all in. Let the butter and the cheese melt. You can see almost instantly it starts to get nice and creamy, not only from the rice, but from the butter and the Parmesan cheese. That is the perfect way to finish risotto. And I always like to put a fresh herb in here. Now, this is where you can get really crazy. Depending on what time of the year it is, you could use sage if it's the fall. You could use rosemary. Rosemary and mushroom are really good friends. But I find, because it's so flavorful, just some parsley. Fresh parsley, put it in. Like the lemon, makes it really nice and bright. See, that's the easy part. If you cook the rice ahead of time, then your guests come over, you're not slaving over the stove, you look professional, and it's a great way to make a nice risotto dish and serve it and not have sweat on your brow, if you know what I'm saying. And that is so delicious. It's so creamy, it's so rich, it's so flavorful, and it is packed with mushroom flavor. All right, I'm hungry. Let's get it on a plate.
Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
I know there's a lot of butter and cheese in it, but I'm a sucker for butter and cheese, and I like to finish it with another nice dusting of Parmesan because, you know, what's life without risotto and cheese? Look at this. I know it's really humble rice dish, but it's so delicious. It's packed with so much flavor. If you were right here, right now, you could smell how much mushroom madness is in this kitchen. And it is the creamiest rice on the face of the planet. That is absolutely heaven. It's rich, it's creamy, it's salty, and it's packed with mushroom flavor. You know, when I tasted risotto for the first time, I thought to myself, man, that's impossible to make. But when I made it, I found out, hey, you can do anything. I challenge you to make this risotto dish, and I guarantee you it'll put a smile on your face. And hey, it's not too bad learning something new in the kitchen. Well, if you excuse me, I'm gonna eat all of this.